Good morning, Jessica here from Jaywalker Dog and Pet Intel. And today I would like you to consider what techniques you are actually implementing when you are working with a dog who is slightly reactive or having some big feelings to things that are happening in the environment and different stimuli. So, in this sort of force free world, there are two main techniques that I see people implementing, and they don't always necessarily know what it is that they're doing or why it's working. So, a lot of clients have gone online and started to look up different things that they could do that might work. And one of these things is positive reinforcement. Now, that one is pretty well known. So, we know that positive reinforcement strengthens behavior and we are rewarding a behavior that we like. So, for instance, dog's barking at a man with a beard. Dog stops barking and looks at the owner. The owner goes, "Way to go. Love that so much. Here's some food." Positive reinforcement. So we are now strengthening the behavior of looking at the owner. And ideally, that becomes stronger behavior than barking at the man. Okay, so that's positive reinforcement. Then there's counter conditioning. Counter conditioning is a pairing activity. So what it doesn't do is take into consideration the dog's behavior. So it's not really about what the dog is doing. It's more about creating this pairing thing with this man with the scary beard and the food. So we want to kind of implement them at the same time. And the more scary the man gets, the faster the food comes. So we kind of want to create this like parallel of like the man and the food at the same time. So it doesn't really take into consideration what the dog's behavior is in that moment. And it can get a little bit confusing for people. It gets even more confusing when you add in another technique called systematic desensitization, but that's for another post. So let's just stay focused. So I want to give you an example of what counter conditioning is. Okay, so I actually think the smell of mothballs is repulsive. So mothballs themselves are really gross to me. However, because for many, many years throughout my childhood, I played in my grandmother's cedar chest full of like her silk scarves, and that was at my grandmother's house, and I would have all these lovely interactions with my loving and doting grandmother, and she always spoiled me and made me feel like a princess. And so now, because that was paired, so that really gross mothball smell with all of these other amazing activities, because those were paired together so often in my mind now, as like an almost 40-year-old woman, I smell mothballs and I feel happy and I start to think about my grandmother and it makes me feel good. So I've managed to create this through counter conditioning to create this association between mothballs and my grandmother. So I just want you to kind of consider that's the idea behind counter conditioning when you're working with your dog.